Hi, I'm Linda Lindsay, and I thought it was about time I showed you my COVID-19 project. This is what I've been working on all summer so far. Ever since I was young, I've been interested in costuming. And back in high school and early college, I did costuming for some of the plays for the drama club and such. It's always been a kind of a bucket list item for me to do a complete outfit from the skin out, start to finish, by hand, period appropriate. And this summer I found a good source for pure linen fabric, so I kind of went crazy and got a whole bunch of it. And then I started to play. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the first thing I made, which is the very first undergarment, the shift. Now the shift was kind of the all-purpose garment. This is what a woman would wear as a nightgown. She wore it as kind of a slip. It was basically against the skin because she could wash this a heck of a lot easier than she could wash the whole rest of it. So this was basically the layer closest to the skin. Now the shift, because of the way looms were built back then, you couldn't go much wider than that with a single panel of fabric. I'll show you in a minute where I had to piece it to make it a little bit wider, otherwise it wouldn't have fit right. You can see how the sleeves are pieced together. It's basically a rectangle with a gusset put in the seam line, and the seam itself here is, you can see that there's two triangles and 3 seams. All of this together means that just for the skirt part alone, I had to sew 12 seams. You can see here that it's got the seam is folded on both sides. This is called a flat fell seam, where you lay the fabric so it's like that as you stitch it, then you fold it and stitch it again so it's all folded up together. Soon as a woman would get out of bed in the morning, she's already wearing the shift because that was her nightgown basically. First thing she'd do would be put on her socks and shoes. Now, these days we tend to put on our shoes and socks last, but that's because we didn't have splintery wooden floors. These stockings here are period appropriate. They're silk. They're my one extravagance. They go from the foot all the way up to above the knee. And then they're tied at the knee with a garter. I'm just using pieces of ribbon here. The shoes themselves were shaped somewhat like this. This is as close as I can get to a period appropriate shoe. Thank you, Becky. But this is basically what they looked like. Some of them had buckles, but they are appropriate to have the laces too. They generally had a heel, usually a little bit shorter, but not by much. It was a blocky heel like this. After she's got her shoes and her socks on, then she puts on her stays. And the stays are made in basically 2 pieces. This is the stomacher. It goes in the front of the stays under the laces. It covers up the front of the shift. Now there were 2 types of stomachers. This one is boned and it goes under the laces, but they could also wear a piece of fabric in front of the laces, usually something to match the dress or the skirt that they were wearing. The stays are the one thing that I did differently than the rest of the outfit. They're machine sewn. These are 4 layers thick and very heavy linen for the inside, and the fashion fabric they call it, which is the pretty fabric on the outside, and then another fabric as a lining on the inside. Now, it looks like this should be out in the front and this should be in the back, but this was actually period appropriate. They would generally put something nice inside where you couldn't see it. I don't know. Each of these lines of stitching here is boned. They used to use whalebone, but obviously whalebone is not something you can get anymore. These days we use rolled boning, plastic boning. This is a piece of it here. You can see it's nice and flexible. This isn't like lacing yourself up in steel. So it is flexible. It will move with you. A lot of people use cable ties, but cable ties don't develop a memory. They don't bend to fit you like this will. And you can see that each of these channels has a piece of boning in it, which is why I sewed it with the machine. The shape of it was designed to shape you into a cone shape. So from about breast level to waist, you look like an ice cream cone. And then your skirts went out and down, kind of gave you a boom, boom type of silhouette. These are called fingers. They will bend outward. They go around your hips. This is to help support the weight of the dress that you're wearing, the skirts and such. Stays are not corsets. Stays are to provide structural support for your body. It's to provide support for your back and give you some support for your front as well. They would wear these from the minute they got up in the morning until they went to bed at night. They're not that uncomfortable. They need to be snug, but not overly tight. You think of Scarlett O'Hara yanking the corset back, saying, "Make it tighter." Well, no, that's not what they did. These were meant to be supportive. A modern analogy would be a sports bra. You can see it's got the laces in the back. It's worn like this. It's got the laces in the back. Once these are laced and set, you leave them alone. And you make all your adjustments in the front. You can make it tighter. You can make it looser. That's entirely how you're comfortable. Everything else except for the lines of the stays, the lines of the boning, is hand sewn. The grommets are all hand done. All of the edging, stitching in the lining, this was all done by hand. The stomacher panel was worn like this, with the lace crossing over the top of them. This is just to give you a good solid silhouette all the way across. As I said before, this is meant to be supportive. All of this here together, I weighed it, runs between 10 and 15 pounds of fabric. So this is heavy, and you need something with a little bit of structure to it to keep the weight of all these skirts and everything off of your waist and your hips. The next item of clothing that she would wear is the pockets. Now, I'll show you when I put the skirt on how the pockets worked. Basically, they tied over the stays, and these would hold all your little bits and pieces of stuff you needed during the day. As an example, you might carry your knitting. You might carry your housewife. This is a little bit of cobbler's wax for sewing with. Needle case. Spare hanky. All of these things would be in your pockets so that you could get to them when you needed them. The housewife is kind of fun. I made this also. This is also hand sewn out of bits and pieces of the leftovers. When you unroll it, you have little bits and pieces of things. There's my thimble. A little bit of tape for in case one breaks. Little pretties like my little bits of ribbon. My scissors. These are also period appropriate. I'm going to make a case for them because they are really too sharp to carry in there. And my sewing needles. There's another little thing, thread holder, which I don't have one yet, but that'll go in this too. So all these neat, nifty little things just tuck away right in your housewife, and you can keep them safe and in your pocket when you need them. There was a children's song. It's called Lucy Locket. Now I understand what it was about. Lucy Locket lost her pocket. Kitty Fisher found it. There was not a penny in it, just a ribbon round it. I always wondered how you could lose a pocket. Well, if the string breaks, you've lost your pocket. Next thing a woman would put on would be her petticoat. She might wear just one petticoat, maybe no petticoat if it was really hot in the summer. she might wear up to 3, and one of them would be quilted if it was really cold in the winter. Central air conditioning wasn't a thing back then, and you could only get so close to the fireplace, and you were always cold. So petticoats were important to keep you warm in the winter. The way these are made, there are 2 rectangles. They're sewn together at the side seams and then hemmed at the top and with the drawstring through. One drawstring wraps around the waist this way. The other one wraps around the waist from the front to the back and then back to the front again and tied. When that happens, this slit right here gives you access to your pocket. The skirt itself, this is the overskirt, it's made exactly the same way with the tape in the back around the waist, the tape in the front around the waist, and then back front again and tied. This one, because it's the outer garment, I pleated the front of it, I gathered the back of it. After all of this was put on, she would put an apron over the front of it to keep it covered. This is similar to the shift in that this would be what would get dirty. It's easier to wash this than the whole skirt. This white one would be for good, for company, for going to church, whatever. The brown one here, this is the work apron. This is the one that you would wear when you're doing dirty stuff like, skinning hogs. Around her shoulders, she would wear a kerchief. Basically, it's a large square of linen that is wrapped around the shoulders and then tucked in around the edge of the stays. This keeps the weather and the cold and the hot off of her neck and her shoulders. The shift is cut pretty low in the front, so putting the kerchief around her shoulders and tucking it into the edge of the shift would kind of give her a little bit more modesty. The last thing that she would wear would be another kerchief, this one slightly smaller. This one she would wear over her head. Now there were 2 different styles. There was just a plain kerchief, like we would wear a bandana today, or they would wear a cap. I made a cap as a prototype. I didn't like it. It made me look like I was 95. No, so I'm going with the kerchief. And this is why I made this whole outfit, so I can do demonstrations for my guild. This is one of the fun things I do in my life, and I just wanted something period appropriate to do it in. I will say it's hot, very hot. This is July 23rd. Oh boy, is it hot. But I think I can handle it. It's not as uncomfortable as it looks. It's heavy. That's fine. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you at a demo sometime. Come up and say hi. Thank you.